Welcome everybody to the Be Great Inspiration Podcast. I got a special guest for you guys tonight, and I can't wait for you to hear her beautiful message and her life story. And welcome to the show, Katie.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a real honor.
Oh, my pleasure. It was awesome. I mean, it was just like, for us when we kind of first met, I was like, she has such a great spirit. So it was like for me, I was like, you'd be a great guest. And I'm grateful that you taken the opportunity to say, hey, I would love to join. So I'm grateful for that. And just thank you for joining.
Well, truly, thank you for having me. It was an honor to meet you when we met that first time. I was like, this guy is going to be awesome. So it's a pleasure to be part of anything that you're
Uh,
doing.
no, I appreciate that. And just like a lot of people may not know as our listeners, like we were going back and forth between email,
Mhm.
and you were super helpful. And I'm like, I'm just going to keep asking questions because,
Please do.
you're super open. And I feel like that's one of the greatest things that we got to have in life is, when people are reaching out and wanting to learn, I think it's a great key for people to be open and say, hey, I'm willing to help. So for me, it's like we first met and then you give me your email and just like we built a relationship. What was that, like 2 years ago? That was
Yeah.
almost, yeah. Cause I was like,
Yeah.
God, that was almost three. That was like 2018.
Oh my God, I think that was 3 years ago.
Yeah. It was something
Oh,
like that.
time is marching on.
Yeah. Time ain't waiting for nobody. So,
Oh,
so yeah, I was like, this is going to be a great relationship. And I thought like I wanted to take it to the next level and bring you as a guest on the show. So it's like,
nice.
so we go ahead and get going. So
All
can
right.
you tell me like what was it like growing up in Knoxville? Like what was your experience like? Do you have any siblings and how was life here in Knoxville for you?
Well, I had a really good upbringing. I have great parents, like, they have a great marriage, like just so many blessings. I like college towns, so I live in Chapel
Yeah.
Hill now, and I love growing up in Knoxville. I just think the college town gives. I love sports. There's just a lot of stuff that being in a college town affords. I love growing up in Knoxville. I struggled with it a little bit, being kind of just a southern town with a big part of it that was, really trying to, I think, I don't know. I don't know what it was like for a boy because I'm a girl, but so for a girl, kind of trying to be pushed into a certain kind of box about how you're supposed to look and what you're supposed to do. And I was a skinny, nerdy, kid and girl, and I don't know. It was you know, that was a little hard for me. I kind of knew I wasn't ever going to really settle in Knoxville. Like I needed somewhere that was a little more progressive, but it was I had a nice upbringing. I have two siblings. I have two sisters. I'm the middle of the three. I have an older sister who is a middle school language arts teacher. And then my younger sister is a public defender in Memphis, Tennessee, and she was a world class athlete. As I've told you
Yeah.
before, she was a swimmer, literally world class. She's a gold medal winner from the 2000 Sydney Olympics. So she's a rock star. But at the same time, she's such a wonderful, normal person. She's truly one of my favorite people in the world. She usually goes to the beach with my family, and we'll
Yeah.
like when the day gets long and we get out on the beach, with a couple beverages, she and I'll start. I don't. I mean, what would I don't? We just start doing crazy stuff like singing everything from Justin Bieber to Lord knows what. I don't know.
Right.
So we just got this great zany side. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I think for, going back to sports, I think like that's what makes Knoxville so, I'm not a UT fan, but that's what makes Knoxville so fun.
yeah,
When
it really
before
does.
COVID was here, like the city once like the big games of people coming here, like the Alabamas, the LSU, like Knoxville is crazy.
Yeah.
And I think like once you get to be in that environment and actually go to the game, you're like, whoa. I don't even feel like I'm in Knoxville anymore. When you're with
No,
a
it's amazing. Like in
yeah,
we grew up going to all the games.
right.
That's just what you do. Like you
Yeah,
go to the basketball games, you go to the football games. We weren't that into baseball, but they've got a great baseball program. I don't know,
right. Yeah, so I think just like what you were saying about the college town, like just being a kid as being a male, it was like whoa, like some of those guys like I've met, through other people, and it's like wow, like these are just people, but it's like as a male, it's like our thing became sports.
Yeah.
For me, it was like growing up, I played golf since I was 3 years old, and then I transitioned into playing basketball, and I'm just like wow, I could literally go to this school up the street.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, like living in a college town, like you really don't notice how like fortunate you are
Yeah.
until it's like
Exactly.
you move away from that and you're like, like when I moved to North Carolina and I moved to Wilson, I'm like, oh man, like I'm not a UT fan, but I don't have the big college town anymore.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
You're
it's
like,
like
what
a
do I
town
do?
of, yeah, it's a town of like 10,000 people. And you're like, I just went from where stadiums were filled with 100,000 to
Mhm.
10,000 people.
Yeah.
So just like that stuff is like, whoa, that's pretty cool. So,
Yeah.
speaking of your sister, like, was there a lot of competitions in the house? Like you said, you were kind of on the nerdy side, she was kind of on the sports side, and then your other sister was just in between. So, was there much
Well,
competition?
yeah. Yeah, I mean, so that's a great question. I mean, my older sister is actually very athletic. I mean, she's one of those people who she just looks at a sport and she can just do it, you know?
Yeah.
Like she just picked up tennis and she was like played it for 6 months and all of a sudden she was ranked in the Southeast, she was a really good
Jeez.
swimmer. She was all these things. But I think in her Achilles heel was that she was so good at everything, she could never settle on one thing. So she
Right.
kind of jumped around. But we all were swimmers. And so I was a swimmer like as long as all of them were, but just not, my swimming career wasn't very exciting. So there wasn't a lot of competition between me and them. And Julia, my younger sister, I mean, she was special from when she was
Yeah.
little. I mean, it's just hard to explain. Like there was just no competition. And it honestly was awesome for me when I was a senior in high school and she was sixth or seventh grade. I guess she was in seventh grade. And she started swimming, up with the senior national level group, which I was like, hanging on to the bottom rung
Wow.
of, she's like leading the lane. But she's 6 years younger than me. And
Right.
I mean, people would always be like, "Oh, that must have sucked. Your sister was beating you." And I was like, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to explain. Like,
Yeah.
it just wasn't. I mean, it was just amazing to have her there. And we got to share so much together. And I went to so many of her meets. Even when I was like working and banking and stuff, I'd take red eyes and go see her swim. And she was just special. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
she was one of those people, like she had that magic combination of work ethic, talent, and love for the sport that you're like, she you could just she had the
Yeah.
potential to be world class, and sure enough,
Right.
that's how it worked out. So
Yeah. And I think that's one of the most key things, for I think for your kids to see and her own kids to see is like I have such like a knit family, but
yeah.
like our family is so diverse. Like, you transition into going into finance and things like that. And then she went in from being a world class, and then your other sister been a great athlete, and then transition into all that. And I think that gives like not only your kids, but your nieces and nephews the opportunity to see like, hey, you can really be anything, you know?
Totally.
So
Totally.
I think that's so powerful in families when families, how you're talking about your sisters, I can really tell that you're a very knit, close, and I think that's so key for families.
It is nice. I mean, having siblings is pretty great. I have to keep reminding myself of that as we're all locked down here, and
Right.
they have, as you could imagine, from your siblings, like they have these moments where they're like the best of friends, and then they're clawing each other's eyes out. So
Oh yeah. Oh
slap.
yeah. If you don't have that, it's like what are we siblings if we don't have that?
Seriously, seriously, there's got to be an equal amount of love and fighting.
Right.
Oh,
So, give us a little background of like what was it like going to Webb? What was your experience like going there as
yeah. So, I mean,
family and
as you know,
sisters?
my younger sister ended up going to West, so
Yeah.
she didn't go to Webb. So my older sister and I were the ones that went to Webb.
Go
I mean,
Rebels!
go Rebel. I know. I mean, she did 2 years at Webb and she was just not having it. And so, yeah, she
Yeah.
left. But um, for me, I mean, being pretty academically oriented, I love that part of it. Like I always, I wanted to take challenging classes. I love that stuff. I don't know, that was just, that worked for me. But Web on the social level was really tough. I just everything from, I mean, in brutal honesty, like, all the money that's there is
Yeah.
tough. I mean, and people just, I don't know. It was kind of an advanced social strata, and like being kind of introverted and academically oriented, I definitely felt uncomfortable and kind of, especially in high school, like kind of pushed into kind of being someone that I really wasn't.
Right.
And so that was tough. So I love Web, but I have kind of mixed feelings about it. I had a really good class, so like I really liked the kids in my class. And so by the time I got to be a senior, that was pretty great. But the other years were kind of tough. So like, to put it in a different way, if we lived in Knoxville, I don't know. I don't know if I'd send my kids to Web or not. I'd have to think about it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
they got the legacy if they go to if they go to
Yeah.
Webb.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think private schools are weird. For
They
me,
are.
one of the most greatest things in my life because I'm like, yo, like this school is so diverse.
Yeah.
I mean, you got and I bet your sister she can probably vouch for this. I mean, you got kids from East Knoxville, you got kids from West Knoxville, you got kids from Farragut that want to go to West. You
Yeah.
got kids from Lonsdale, and I mean, the diversity in that school was just like whoa, like. So I mean, for me, I don't know if I could ever imagine going to a private school. I don't know if I would actually fit in. Like you, I'd probably because a lot of people don't know, like I have a learning disability.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had seizures when I was younger, and I used to have to go to like IEP classes to where like
Yeah.
I got to go to a different room to take my tests and do this and do that, and it's like me going to a private school and then those kids seeing me leave. Like Wes, it was like, okay, we get it, bro. You know what I'm saying? But
Yep.
like at a private school, I don't know how I would fit in with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so going into like your senior year, you said things got better, and things continue to get better for you. And your first 3 years was a little tough. So like,
Yeah.
what was your dream school after Webb? Like, where did you think like this is where I want to go and this is where I'm going and I'm determined to go there? Or was it kind of like, okay, this is kind of where I want to go, but I'm not sure if I want to go there? Like, so what was your dream school?
Well, my dream school was Wake Forest, and
Yeah.
I applied early decision along with, I kid you not, 8 other kids out of a class of 100 at Webb. So
Whoa.
shockingly, not all of us got in, which would
Yeah.
include me. I did. So, I mean, it was like the problem with Webb, I think too, is that you kind of, well, I mean, just what you were saying, like you don't get a lot of diversity, or at least you didn't at the time. And so you have all these kids who are kind of similar applying to these similar smallish schools. And I mean, there's no way Wake Forest is going to let 9 kids from Webb in. I mean, it's like, it's just not going to
Right.
happen. Like, so, so I got deferred to regular admission, which was fine. But what that forced me to do was to look at other schools. And I was in Nashville for a swim meet, and my mom made me go take the tour at Vanderbilt. I didn't want to go.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those things where like I was walking around campus and I can't even tell you what it was. I mean, it was a God thing or whatever it was. And I was just like,
Yeah.
this is where I want to go. And so it just flipped at that point. And I applied to Vanderbilt, and, thank the Lord I got in. And I did I end up getting into Wake regular? I don't know. I can't even remember. Because
Yeah.
when I got my acceptance to Vandy, I was like, that's where I'm going. So
So speaking of, acceptance, how was that like reaction? Like what would you tell the listeners like, if you're set in stone on a college that you really want to go to, but it doesn't you get that email or that note back that says we can accept you now.
yeah.
What was your react what kept you basically what kept you motivated?
That's a is it because like that's a challenge of applying early decision if you don't get in is that it's kind of like you get an early rejection in the process. You
Right.
apply like I can't even remember September, October, and I think I was really disappointed. I mean, not gonna lie, like I really wanted to go there, and that was a real bummer. Um, I think I don't know. I just was like, just like, well, I don't know. I'm kind of one of those people that like, if a door closes, I'm just going to pivot and try to find the next door, so
Yeah.
whatever it was. So I mean, I was bummed, but I definitely, wasn't ever going to be like, well, I give up or throw up my hands or whatever. And I mean, to be honest, like I had good grades in high school, and I don't know if it was coming out of a school like Webb where a lot of kids applied to the same type of schools, but I can't remember. I think I applied to 5 or 6, but I think I only got into 2. So
Yeah.
it wasn't like I had like, thankfully I got into Vandy, but it wasn't like it was humbling. I mean, for sure. I was like, oh man, I kind of went into it thinking like everybody's going to accept me, and not the
Right.
case. But I think it was good in that it helped me go into college kind of with a healthy view of who I was, and just that I was going to need to work hard. And I was really thankful to be where I was. So there was no sort of like I deserve to be here. This
Yeah.
should have been given to me. That kind of thing. I was really thankful to have gotten into Vandy and gotten the chance to go. So
Yeah.
it kind of changed my perspective a little bit, I guess you could say.
And I think, like one of the key things that you said, it was humbling,
It was humbling.
and
Sure.
I think that's one of the greatest things that humans that we can learn,
Yeah.
and something like you said earlier, it was a God thing. It was meant for me to go to Vandy. It was just a God thing, and I'm a believer. And I think that was, you getting that rejection was like God saying, "Hey, like I have something better for you,"
Yeah.
and
I
then
think so too.
I mean, look at it now, so you look back and you say, wow, like who would I have become? Would I became the mother that I am or the person that I am today if I would have got into the school that I would have, wanted to go to? So I think that was one of the greatest things, is you not saying this in this way, but you were kind of humbled, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
but it
Well,
definitely, you can tell like it made you, like you said, work harder. It made you become
mhm.
more focused and more in tune. So, speaking of Vanderbilt, were you part of any social groups or any groups? What was,
Yeah. Yeah. So I saw that question and I was like, well, so I mean, I did a lot of volunteering, and one thing that I did a lot was I volunteered through a group called the Vanderbilt Prison Project, where we went to local juvenile detention centers and tutored
wow.
kids, and it was
Yeah.
it was awesome. I did that for my sophomore, junior, and senior year, and I would not trade that for anything. So I did that, and then I was in a sorority. I mean, it's really interesting. Sororities get kind of I mean, I mean they're fun, if you're in them, and then they get a little bit of a bad rap. One thing that I loved about Vandy is that unlike a really cutthroat type rush, it, like 50 to 60% of the campus is Greek, which is a really high percentage.
Wow.
So if you want to be Greek, you
I
can
did
be.
not, I did
Yeah,
not know that.
I don't think I knew anybody who fell through to the point to where they weren't in at least one of their top 3. So it's a much 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 more inclusive type Greek system, which is really fun. I mean, honestly, it makes
Yeah.
it a heck of a lot more fun.
Right.
Um, and so I was in that. I was philanthropy chair. I was a theta, which I don't know. Some people know that, though. But interestingly, like coming from a college town, there is not a theta chapter at University of Tennessee Knoxville. So when I went into Vanderbilt, also has deferred rush, so you rush in January of your freshman year, not when you walk on
Wow.
campus, which is also great because
That,
you just get to know people. Like I
that's what I
didn't know,
was. Yeah.
yeah, I didn't know any thetas when I walked on campus, and I thought, oh, I'll be a Chi-O or a Tridelt or an 80 pi or something,
Yeah.
and I just went a completely different way, and that wouldn't have happened if they didn't. It wasn't an inclusive rush, and if it wasn't for deferred rush, so you know.
Yeah. And I think, one thing that I learned when I was going to college, and you can speak on this, is what you just said. Like, it gave you time to build relationships.
Yes.
So that time, like, I mean, imagine change the scenario and you go to Wake Forest,
Yeah.
and then you're having a rush after August, and you're like,
That's just
I don't
crazy.
like, I don't like any of these
I
social
don't like
groups. You
any
know
of
what
these
I'm saying?
people. Yeah, I don't know
Right.
any
I
of
don't
them.
like.
Yeah.
So I think, for the listeners, young men and young women, like being able to hear that, like, at Vandy, 50%, like if that's one of your dream schools and you want to do Greek life, like you just heard it right here. So I think like you getting to build those relationships were key.
Yeah.
Because then
Yeah.
you got to see like, okay, I want to be around this type of energy. I want to be around these type of girls and these people. And, I think one of the greatest things is like being in a social group, you get into events that you never thought you'd be able to get into. And the
Yeah.
relationships out of it were incredible. So
Yeah.
speak of, are you still connected with any of your sisters?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, there's one that lives in Charlotte, and then my two best friends. Um, so I ended up being two friends with these two girls from Austin, Texas, and it just created this incredible tie to Texas. And I actually ended up my first 3 years out of college, I went and worked and lived in Houston, Texas, and that was no accident from the fact that my best friends had been from Austin. So yeah, yeah, I'm definitely still in touch with them. And then a good other sorority sister friend of mine, she lives in Memphis. So it's just kind of this really unique and fun bond. But again, like I'm a huge fan of deferred rush. It just puts the focus more on who you are and finding your people and less about what connections you have before you walk on campus, which quite frankly,
Right.
like, I, how do
Yeah.
you, it's more like who your mom and dad know, which it ought to
Right.
be who you want to be. So
That's so powerful. And what you just said, like that's huge. And I hope my listeners, I hope y'all heard that. Like you get the opportunity to become who you want to be. I think a lot of people, just speaking of, who your parents know, I think a lot of people fall into that, and then they truly like it's just like LeBron James and his son LeBron, he named his son LeBron James Jr. So it's like, does he ever really truly get to become himself? Or is
I
he
don't know.
always
That's
like,
tough.
you know what I'm saying? So it's like
that's, a,
even
that's a tall hill to climb there.
yeah. So it's like even not just not even him. It's just like kids fall into that trap of them being what? Okay, well, you know what his mom and dad does,
Yeah.
or you know what her mom and dad does. It's like you just said it. Like you get to become your own person.
You get to become your own person. And I mean, another thing, and I can tell you from now being on the other side of it, at least about the Vanderbilt Greek system, at least the house that I was in, I mean, there are obviously people who come in whose parents were in it, and that's something. But like I recall with perfect clarity that all of the 3 years that I was on the other side of it for Rush, there were lots of girls who would come in and we had no recommendation, no anything. And, there was someone that we met or we had a class with or whatever, and she was this awesome person. And, and they got in. I mean? So it's
Yeah,
just like it was really refreshing in terms of it being more about who you are and less about who you know, like the moment you set foot on campus.
right. So speaking of, who you know and things like who did you really become close with that you're like not just your two best friends that you just named, but like someone that you were like in the sisterhood with that you were like, I'm never gonna get close to that person. Or it's like you ran into him in events and you were like, oh, I never thought I would run into you.
It's God, that's a great question. I mean, I don't know. I kind of like love and like most people. A unique one is that when I got there and started, kind of going through Rush, the main wasn't the first person that I met, but the main person that really connected me to Theta was ended up being my big sis, and she had gone to Farragut, and there's this Vietnamese girl,
What?
and she was just awesome, and we're lifelong friends. She's a doctor now in Nashville, but You know, we were both from Knoxville, didn't know each
Yeah.
other. Like, and it was like I don't know, it was like a God thing. I mean, we were just meant to be really close friends. And, you know, sure
Wow.
enough, you know, here we are, you know, however many years later. And I don't, you know, I don't know that I would have said it. I mean, it was just so great to meet her. And I don't know, just kind of like, you know, she had this very different high school experience at Farragut, and we didn't know each other because Farragut's huge. And, you
Right.
know, like,
Right.
um, and just to have this amazing, you know, friendship, you know, just from the get-go was just, I it was just awesome. Like, it was just so
Yeah.
cool. So anyway,
So then if you go to Wake Forest, you never get to have
no,
this
definitely
relationship.
not.
And
Yeah.
now you get to travel to Nashville if you have you got a doctor on speed dial now. So
Yes.
it's like, hey doc, something's going on. Like
Exactly.
through the social group. And I
Yeah,
think that, hearing that, I think that's a key thing that people need to learn is like the social groups, man, they can create so many opportunities
absolutely.
that you never dreamed of.
Mm-mm. And especially if you kind of find your people. Like, I think that those
That's
relationships are
key.
really deeper if if you kind of find your people and you're in the right place versus, you know, where you ought to be, where someone else thinks you should be. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I know Greek life is completely different at every campus,
That's true.
So, what would be your advice to young women that are thinking about joining a group or they're kind of nervous about joining a club, like, or not even just that, not even getting to that point? Like, what would be your advice to young women about just even choosing a college?
You know, I would just say that, I mean, honestly, I mean, just for me, it was very like, there was a combination of a real gut feel that that was where I really wanted to be. There was the blessing of getting in, you know, because that's never a given. And then, and, you know, and I definitely recognize that, as we talked about. And then just, you know, making sure that that there's an element of challenge there for you too. You know, I would, you know, I mean, sure, have your safety school, but, you know, make sure that wherever you go, that there's something there that will challenge you, whether it's academics or whether it's social or whether it's, you know, philanthropic or, you know, whatever it is. And go find that and make sure that's part of your, you know, kind of your collegiate life. Like, have that balance of getting out into the community wherever you go, have a great academic experience, and have a great social experience. There's nothing like college. I feel so bad for the college
Yeah.
kids right now, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, oh,
Yeah, that's brutal right now. I mean, not even
yeah,
be able to do anything, go anywhere, have social events. Some kids are just like, all right, man, I'll just take the chance. I
yeah.
just I
I
just
know.
want to hang with my friends. I just want to
I
see
know.
people.
I can totally understand, you know? I
Yeah.
mean, I can't say I would do anything
Right. Right. So so after Vanderbilt, it becomes what becomes your focus after that? Like what?
very career focused. It was the late
Yeah.
90s. Yeah, it was you know, and I'm Gen X. I don't know, like, we just grew up in that sort of, it was all about your career. So, and I was economics, finance, math. Like, I went into you know, basically structured finance, investment banking after Vanderbilt in Houston, Texas, and then kind of transitioned over into equity research. So I was just very much in like the finance investment side of
Yeah.
things. So, you know, I worked a ton.
Yeah.
And no, but I mean, you know, you're 21. What else do you have to do? You got like boundless energy. So, you know, you just work an 80-hour week and have a good weekend and sleep all day Sunday and get up and do it again. You know, it's like, and then really, I mean, I kind of knew when I left Vanderbilt that I wanted to go to a top tier business school. Like, that became a very discrete goal. Like, I wanted to go to a top 5 business school.
Yeah.
And I knew my plan was to like work, you know, for 3 to 5 years and then, you know, take the GMAT and apply and go back. And what ended up happening was September 11th happened. I guess about 3 years after I graduated. And, you know, there were just so many things about that were just really stunning and seminal for me. I mean, I was, you know, I had tons of friends that worked on Wall Street. I knew people that died. I knew people at Cantor Fitzgerald, which you may not
Yeah.
notice, but it was a kind of a boutique investment banking firm that was on like the 120th floor of the South Tower. Literally every employee who was there died, every single one.
Jesus.
And so that was just really kind of being in the industry, having friends from college that were there on Wall Street, knowing people that died. I don't know. I was just like, I was in Texas. I was far from home. And I was just like, I just knew I wasn't going to spend my life in Texas. And so I was like, it's time to go to school. So in 2002, that fall was like the highest application for graduate schools ever, because it was also the middle of the recession. Like we'd had the tech crash, like all that stuff.
Yeah.
So there were tons of kids going back to grad school. So it was really competitive. I was just honestly a little obsessed with my GMAT score. I took it 3 times in an attempt to raise my score. And I wanted to go to Harvard. I wanted to go to Harvard Business School. But I applied to Harvard. But I also wanted to kind of get back closer to home. So I applied to Duke.
Yeah.
And I applied to UNC. And I got waitlisted at Harvard. Once again, the disappointment, the rejection. Yeah. And I got into Duke and UNC. And I loved UNC, but I kind of had a puffed up ego, and Duke was the higher ranked school and the more prestigious school. And I was like, I'm going to go to Duke. And this is stunning. I got a partial scholarship to go to UNC, and I turned it down to go to Duke. So I took on more student debt because of my stupid ego.
You just wanted to be a Blue Devil.
I wanted to be a Blue Devil. I mean, I love college basketball. I love college football, and I love college basketball. I probably love college basketball a little bit more. Yeah. I mean, I was like, when my dad and I were traveling around looking at colleges, I didn't even apply to Kentucky, but we took a special trip up to watch UT play Kentucky at Rupp Arena because I wanted to go see a game at Rupp Arena. So getting to go to Duke and getting to go see games and Coach K and, the whole thing was just, that was definitely a dream and a massive draw. And it's not like UNC is like, some slouch on the basketball court. So, it was like, but it was just something about Duke. I don't know, and so there you go. But it's funny. It's my husband and I talk about this a lot because he went to Notre Dame and wanted to go to University of Texas for business school. And he got in, but he chose to go to Duke, and we met like on one of our first days on campus. And, we almost, each of us was like, I was about to wait another year and reapply to Harvard, and he was about to go to Texas, and we never would have met. And
wow.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
So you go back through that rejection, right?
Mm-hmm.
You go back through the obstacle. Once again, you're like, come on now. Like the school that I want to get into, this is the second time.
It was like Groundhog Day. It was seriously like Groundhog Day. I was like, come on, man.
Like, come on. Like, this is the second time in my career applying to schools. So that is incredible, though. You met your husband the first day.
Yeah.
Wow. And the rest is history.
Yeah. And he's from the Chicago area. So, I mean, like, no chance we would have met another way. I mean, I guess maybe, but yeah.
So there goes that God thing again.
There's the God thing. Yeah. We started dating pretty quick on.
Yeah.
And then we were engaged 1 year later. I mean, it was like, wow. I don't know. I knew when, it was one of those things, kind of like the college. Like I knew when I met him, I was just like, I want to spend the rest of my life with him. It's just no question.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So, yeah.
Wow. That's incredible. Me and my girlfriend have been dating for like a year, and this would be 5 months. I'm forgetting the dates. I hope she doesn't watch this episode. But yeah, so like going into that, man, like that's a year, and then you're like, oh yeah, you're not going anywhere. I'm spending the rest of my life with you.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, and it I really.
So what are you going on? Anniversary? What are we going on? How many years?
17 years this June.
Wow.
Yeah.
June what? My birthday is June 8th.
June 4th.
What? We got to celebrate together.
I know. Is it a big birthday for you?
Yeah. Nah, I'll be 26. So
Wait till
Yeah,
you turn 30. Oh, God.
yeah, I'll be 26, but I'm gonna have to like once COVID kind of slowed down, I'm gonna have to come to North Carolina and see you guys.
Oh my God, please do. Come
Yeah,
see us.
that would be awesome.
Come stay with
So
us. I got a spare
yeah, you got
bed.
a guest room?
Yeah.
Oh, we're in there then.
Yeah. Y'all come
That'd
on.
be
It'd be awesome.
yeah, that'd be sweet. So, going into Duke, you meet your husband. Like, how do you stay like how do y'all stay focused? Like what
I mean, it's
like
just
for the
like,
ladies to hear this. This is for the ladies that are
this is
in
for the ladies.
college.
Honestly, he and I both we're complements. I mean, like we're different, but we're similar. Like, so we just
Yeah,
spent tons of time together. And to be honest, like if you're going to a school like Duke, you're and you're only there for 2 years, you're gonna, I mean, I don't know, at least my perspective and his perspective too was like, we're gonna make the most of it. So like,
right.
we wanted to be really involved in everything on campus. We wanted to, really, you have these amazing professors and honestly amazing classmates. Like it
Yeah,
was just so it was just a pleasure to be in school, honestly. Like, so I think that's the thing about grad school is that you really love what you're doing, or at least we did,
right.
just love business. And the great thing about Duke is that, you kind of have core classes, but then you can really tailor it. I mean, and I spent my second year, really focused on portfolio theory and various aspects of finance. And my husband is more in operations and marketing, so like he kind of did that stuff. But yeah, I mean, it was just like what we were doing together. It was like a team effort, basically.
Yeah,
So like that was just another way I think that we just knew, like, that it was,
right.
we were meant to be a team for life,
Yeah.
to sound a
That's
little cheesy, but
no, I mean that's what you gotta be, in
what you got to
relationships.
be.
I mean, you have to be a team.
You
I mean,
have to be a team.
it can't be like, oh, I'm gonna do this or I'm gonna do that. Like I noticed that in my relationship, like, hey, we're a team, like, we gotta do this together. So I think that's like really key. And that's why you're going on 17 years, June 4th,
Yeah.
you
I
know?
mean, because it's like it's kind of cliche, and I'm feeling like I'm getting old, but like, kids are amazing, but kids are hard. I mean, like you
Yeah.
got to be a team, and like life is hard. I mean, we've both lost jobs, like gotten laid off. I mean, dealt with the ups and downs of all of that. We've moved across the country a couple times, like um bought and sold houses. I mean, that's
Yeah.
ridiculously stressful. I mean, like,
Yeah.
like real life is
Right.
stressful and hard. It can be, so you be sure you're in it with someone that
Yeah.
you really like.
So that yeah, y'all hear that as my listeners. Be in it with someone that you really like and that you really enjoy to be around.
You really
So
enjoy to be around. It's got to be your true love and your best friend. It's got to be both.
right. Amen to that. So as y'all are engaged and you're
Mhm.
starting to figure out what you want to do and he's starting to figure out what he wants to do, like so you move across the country and do y'all move together once you go to Nike or does like he's
Yeah, so that's
give me
interesting.
the
I mean,
story.
so like, like my mom quit working when she got married, which was like, I guess more generationally, whatever, normal, I guess at that time. But, I've always wanted to work, clearly, invested a lot in my education, et cetera. And so balancing two careers, it was hard to find, mentors and people to really kind of guide you through that. And I
Right.
mean, I would say is a lot of compromise. And we kind of decided after grad school that we wanted to live out west. We wanted to go to the Bay Area, we wanted to go to Portland, we wanted to go to Seattle. And
Yeah.
my very good friend from Duke, Lascelle,
Yeah.
had gotten a job at Nike in like their strategy track. Like, so they pulled people out of business school and did their strategy track. And um, she just got, you only get so many corporate favors, and God love her, she used one on me and got me in touch with the right person. It got me the interview, and she was like, "I'll help you get the interview." And she's so great because she's like, she loves you, but she's going to tell you how it is. She was like, "This is your shot, Katie." So like,
Yeah.
it's, you're not going to get another one. And
Right.
so Kevin and I, that's my husband, just talked about it, and it was like, "Hey, this is what this is going to mean." And so yeah, I went out and did the interview and got the job, and he just came out with me. And, thankfully, I mean, he's a smart guy, has great education, got a job
Right.
when we got out there. But it was definitely one of those things where, he was sacrificing for me to go out to do something that we thought we both ultimately wanted. And I think it's kind of what you got to do. I mean, and there's been moments where we've, made sacrifices for his career too, but it's got to go both ways.
Right. And I think like that is one of the key things that you just said is sacrifice.
Hmm.
And I think sometimes we take that for granted, that we don't sacrifice enough. And it's like, and then
Yeah.
you sit there and question yourself, like, am I sacrificing enough? And that's what
Yeah.
I had to notice in my relationship with Sydney was like, there's more that I have to sacrifice in order for this to work. And like y'all
Mhm.
moving across to the West and, him not having a job and then you're working and then he finally gets a job. Like, I hope people hear like that is not something that's just easy to do.
It's not easy to do. Yeah, it was
Like,
tough. Yeah.
and y'all made it through though.
Made it through. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
So,
hang in there. Perseverance. Keep going.
right. I love that
One foot in front of the
perseverance,
other. And the other
so
thing too, I think, is that just making those connections. Like if you know, wherever you end up going to school, if you make good connections, because like really LaSalle getting me that connection to get the interview,
right.
it was huge. I mean, it was life changing. And she did that for me, with no, there's
Oh,
nothing in it for her,
right.
but she probably had two or three, favors she could call in, and she chose to call one
Yeah.
in on me. So you have those really respectful, awesome relationships, and um, you know, that's it's huge.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's the key thing, going into college is like don't just be so tunnel vision that you
Yeah.
miss out on opportunities. Like if you would have, it goes all the way back to the rejection.
Hmm.
And then you go to Duke and then you make this relationship, and then this relationship turns into her helping you get a corporate job at a Fortune 500 company,
Yeah.
and it's like, wow, if you would have never went to Duke and actually, met her and been in this situation, and around her. But I think we can go all the way back to you being in your social group. I think
Yeah.
you learning those communication skills in that group is what helped you and developed you into who you are today. And if
Yeah.
you know,
It
if I'm
really
wrong,
is probably true, because as I was saying, I was very shy and like introverted. I
yeah,
mean, I still kind of am, but like, you know, it it definitely was huge. It definitely helped a ton, to kind of help me.
right. And I think like even like going back to me and you going back and forth in email, like it's like you're so busy, but it's like you take the time to really reflect on helping people. And I think that goes back to you volunteering and you
Yeah.
doing all the involvement and you going to the juvenile stuff and being like, hey, these kids, they just need help. They just need direction.
Yeah.
We can't just throw them in there and say, well, we're done with them.
Mm-mm.
And it's just like I look at myself like that. It's like we just met. I get your email on the first day, and it's like we've built a relationship over
Those were,
3 years
yeah,
now. And I'm
absolutely.
like, and like, so I think that's what has helped you excel so much is people seeing your heart.
Well, thank you.
So I just wanted to say that, and I think like you've helped me a lot, even just and be great in the way that I was thinking about things, and you gave me some sources to read about, and so I think that people can definitely they see your heart. So I see why LaSalle did what she did. You
Mm.
know, I'm not surprised. So
Well, I hope I can be a good partner for you in the future. So I hope
yeah,
we're just at the beginning.
oh yeah, oh yeah. So going to Nike, going through that transition, like what advice would you give to young adults that are like, hey, I want to work for a Fortune 500 company?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I would say Nike's a unique company because they want to see that you have a passion for athletics. I mean, they're so well known, so much brand awareness. Like, even for, the nerdy finance jobs, they want to see that people have, yeah, like passion for sports. And so my husband and I had been like, so I was a swimmer, and then when I was in college, I started running. I kind of figured out that while I wasn't super talented with, like, hand-eye coordination, I endurance athletics comes pretty naturally to me. So
Yeah.
like I had run a few marathons at that point, I'd run Boston, like I'd done some different things. And my husband and I had been competitive triathletes, and we did an Ironman. And so, like, all these things were like on my rap sheet, going into Nike. So it was kind of that combination of that plus my education. So, I mean, I guess my advice would be get good grades, take your education seriously, not only because it's kind of a tangible record of who you are and how hard you tried, but it also
Right.
teaches you things. I mean, like, I mean, I have absolutely applied so much of
Right.
what I learned at Duke and Vanderbilt, in finance and valuation and all kinds of stuff. And then I would say to really develop your passions at the same time, because those
Yeah.
two things come together
They do.
to make you the standout candidate for a company.
Yeah.
So,
That's great advice. And
yeah,
I think one of the key things that you said though was like you have to really take your education seriously.
you got to take it
Be-
seriously. Yeah.
Because like I think you start creating real true habits. It's like, hey, I know I got homework tonight. I know it's due at 9 o'clock, but I'm gonna go out. And then it's like that, that habit becomes a gradual thing, and then it keeps growing and keeps growing. And it's just like, yeah, you got to take your education seriously. That was one of the key things for me. It's like, even when I went to, Barton College, super small school, but
Yeah.
I was like, yo, like, I'm gonna make heck of relationships, but
Yep.
my education is gonna be key. Like, I graduated cum laude,
Nice.
so yeah, so it was like, whoa, like and then
Good
I
on
get
you.
on, yeah, and then I get on stage and I do one of the most historic things ever, and I took a selfie with the president. I was in the newspaper, I was on the website. It was crazy. And it's
That's
just
awesome.
like it was, but it goes back to what you said though, the connection, the
Mm.
relationship. Me and the president grew a relationship in the 2 years that I was there. So it's like for him, it's like, hey, he could have just been like, dude, get that phone out of here. What are you doing? When I'm
Yeah.
having my phone in my pocket, I got my camera open, and it's like, boop. And it's like,
Awesome.
oh, and then everybody goes crazy. So it's like,
That's awesome.
you speaking on those connections and those relationships, but taking your education seriously is key.
Yeah. Because, like, no one can take that away from you.
No,
If that is yours, that is will be with you. And I can just tell, from two careers and all the other things happening, like, that is a foundation that you will stand on, and you'll need to stand on
yes,
it. Like,
most definitely.
yeah.
But I think you said another key thing that I really caught on to was, you applied that knowledge. And I
Mm.
think, people, for me, I take it a little further. I say knowledge is power,
Yeah.
but it becomes supernatural when you apply that knowledge and you
Yeah.
put it into action.
Yes.
Once you do that, it's like, whoa, okay, I'm unstoppable.
Yeah.
You start to feel like, whoa, like what I learned at Duke and Vanderbilt, like now I'm putting that into action.
Yeah.
Who can stop
I would
me?
say, also, if you ever have any entrepreneurial aspirations, it's really important that you take your schooling seriously, because you got to learn what to do.
Right,
Like,
for
nobody's
sure.
nobody's gonna. I mean, like, now I'm a small business owner. Like, starting a small business is one of the hardest things I've ever done. I mean, and
Yeah.
nobody's going to tell you what to do. You have to wake up and invent it basically every day, and you're going to rely on that education. That
Yes.
is huge. It's huge.
Yes.
So it's, don't view it as something that you have to do. View it as something that you want to do, to
Right.
be there for you, when you want to start your company or do whatever.
Right. And I think one of the key sayings that I like saying to myself is like, you got to do what you got to do so you can do what you want to do.
Yeah. Oh,
And that's it.
that is it. That's it. You got to do
You-
what you got to do so you can do what you want to do. That's a great way
yeah.
to.
So speaking of small business, like, how did you get involved in Gulfstream? Like, how
Well,
did we meet?
How do we meet? Well, I mean, I honestly, it kind of goes a little bit back to swimming and connections. So there was another swimmer that I grew up with who ended up being another Olympian, who was just really good friends with my sister, my family. And when I left, when my husband took the job in North Carolina, and we left um, Oregon, which I had planned to work, and I had interviewed for all these jobs, but I'm not going to like get on my soapbox, but I was 7 months pregnant with our second child, and no one was going to hire me at 7 months pregnant. Because I
Right.
wanted to. I mean, even a standard federal maternity leave is 12 weeks, and no one was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, we're not going to hire you for at least another 4 months." Um,
Right.
so no one did. And I came here, sans job, and had babies, and actually did the stay-at-home mom thing for about 6 months and realized it was not for
Yeah.
me. Um, it was very hard. Tip of the cap to all the stay-at-home
Yeah.
moms. um, but I just started, I wanted to, I had been in investments, I had been in that side of it. I had gone to corporate finance and done the thing with Nike, and that had kind of had an investment bent to it from a couple different groups I was in. But then I came back and I was like, I want to fully focus on investments. And it had always been a dream to start a wealth management company. But at the time, it's really hard to start a business. And my sister said, "Hey, this guy Davis is starting one with this other guy, Andrew." And turns out I had known Andrew from
What?
Young Life in Knoxville. He was 3 years older than me, and I
Uh,
just knew him from club and from Windy Gap trips and a couple other things. And at any rate, had an interview with them. They were like, "It's eat what you kill."
yeah.
You bring it in, and yeah, I mean, we've just grown it. I mean, Davis has actually since gone off and done something else, but now it's basically me
Yeah.
and Andrew. And I mean, I guess this is my 7th year. So,
Wow.
we've been at it for a while. It's
Yeah.
it's honestly, it's the hardest but most rewarding thing. I take it very seriously, an immense amount of personal responsibility for what we do.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Yeah.
kind of how it all came together. But especially when you're an entrepreneur and starting a business, in any business that requires trust, especially like
Right.
wealth management,
Yeah.
your education credentials are massive in establishing
Yes.
credibility when you're getting started. So that was, again, take your education seriously. Like,
Yeah. But I think it goes back to everything that you volunteered and Young Life.
yeah,
And it's like, wow, that it's like you moved all the way west and then you come all the way back and it's like, whoa, like now I'm working at Gulfstream off a relationship that I made a long time ago.
oh, I made 20 years ago. Yeah,
Yeah. And now
yeah,
you've been in business together for 7 years.
yeah,
Wow, that's incredible. So,
yeah.
speaking of wealth, and speaking of investing, what would be your advice to someone coming out of college or someone like, hey, I want to learn how to invest? What would be
Mm.
your advice to them? Like where to
Oh,
start or
absolutely.
take your
Just get
time?
started. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just get started. And you have such a long time horizon. You could do something like a Wealthfront or a Betterment, or those online tools are amazing. And just have some diversification. Some in stocks, some in bonds. Don't try to get too fancy with it. The most important thing when you're young is just starting to save, and don't feel
Yeah.
like it has to be some massive amount of money, but just to the extent you can do it every month, or at least one slug a year, it will make a huge difference. Once that compounding, that power of math,
Yeah.
just get started, get off zero. That would be my advice.
I think that was the advice that you gave me 3 years ago. You were like, "Hey, Chris, just go, just
Just
go
go,
for it, just
get
start."
started.
And
Yeah.
now it's like I own, I put in like $100 into the market, but it's one stock that you gave me. It's
Oh
an
gosh.
ETF, and it's
Good
literally been on my
Lord.
watch list for like since you told me about it. It's been on my watch list. I think it's like the Vanguard 500 or something like that.
Yeah, it's probably yeah, it's one of
Yeah,
the big market indices. But yeah, I mean, when you're getting started, just go for one of the big market
yeah,
ETFs. You'll get Apple, you'll get Tesla, you'll get
right.
you'll get all your good names.
So that's something that we'll have to discuss in email is like, hey, which ETF? Because I think the one that you had me look at, it's only like $65, but it has
Yeah.
holdings in all the Fortune 500 companies.
That's exactly right. That's
So
exactly right.
I've recently, I've actually been looking at the market, studying the market, and I'm kind of like, oh man, I don't know what's going to happen these next few months. I'm
I don't
kind of,
know either. But again, you're super young. It's
yeah.
better just to get off
So
zero. Yeah.
right. So that would be the key for me is just continue to keep learning, keep studying, and then keep investing. And I'm putting in money that I can lose. Like I don't want to put in $1,000 and be like, oh man, how am I going to pay this bill?
Yeah,
So
don't yeah, don't do that. Yeah.
right,
Don't, keep what you got have to live on over here, but try to,
yeah,
just contribute a little, even little bits matter. Every little
right,
bit matters. It's like
right,
drop in a bucket.
yeah. So I've been recently just putting in like 25, and then just really diversifying my whole
Yeah,
portfolio. Like I
that's
got
cool.
stocks from big pharma, I got stocks from oil, I got stocks from energy. Like it's all over the place.
That's
But
awesome.
this has been awesome. This has been an amazing interview, and just hearing
Oh,
your
thanks,
story.
Chris. This has been fun.
Yeah, hearing your story has been awesome. And I think one thing that I can learn from your story and other people that can learn is like just keep persevering.
Keep
Just
persevering.
keep going. And so I always love to end all my interviews with this question. So what does being great mean to you?
Hmm.
Take your time, no rush. Take your time.
I mean, for me at least, I think it just means giving of yourself. I mean, and to your family, to your work, to the world. And you're not going to be able to do it in every way, but in whatever way speaks to your heart. And like, just get out there with, you know, hard work and humility and yeah, I mean, like in perseverance and just, I never expect like to, you know, make massive improvements in one day, but if every day you can just do something pretty good, that's pretty awesome. All those little things make a big difference.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I think, yeah, one of the key things that you said is humility. When you can level yourself and realize, like, hey, you're not just the only person on this earth. And I think that right there would take you so far in life. And it's like people have heard it in this with you.
Yeah,
Your
yeah,
humility and coming down and saying, hey, I'm not the only person on this earth. And I want to reach out and help people. And then look what the help and the volunteer has created for your life.
totally.
So that was awesome. And thank you so much for being on Be Great Inspiration podcast.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.